One financial analyst who spent 2 decades studying the markets agreed to a rare on-camera appearance to issue his biggest warning ever. He says the biggest market bubble in history is popping. So you can do nothing or take this one simple step to prepare now. This past winter, he began issuing a big warning about inflation and a looming market disaster. His timing was nearly perfect. But he promises you there's still time to act, to protect yourself, and potentially see some of the biggest gains of your life in the coming years in the right time-tested assets. Ones that tend to skyrocket in times of inflation, like hard assets, energy, and gold. He's put together a 5-stock model portfolio, a way to not just beat inflation, but benefit from it. This dead simple one-step investment approach could show you a series of triple-digit gains or higher starting right now. You could set yourself up in minutes and likely forget about inflation, rising prices, or the worst effects of a market crash for years to come. The critical thing is that you act now. Do your future self a huge favor and get the facts free of charge. To watch our full interview for free, simply go to inflationprotection2022.com. Again, that's inflationprotection2022.com to watch our full interview. Hi, this is Daniela Cambone, and welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show here on Stansberry Research. My guest today is Nick Prouten. He is the Chief Operating Officer over at LODE. It is an initiative looking to restore gold and silver to the monetary system. We're going to be learning about that and so much more. Nick, welcome to my show. So good to see you.
Daniela, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, the reason I thought you'd be a great guest for this show is because, you not only have knowledge in the gold and silver market, but you also have a great interest in, resetting the current monetary system. You're kind of a champion in this field. So these are obviously two topics that are dear to my audience's heart. So, we're going to talk crypto, we're going to talk gold and silver and all that jazz. But first, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about LODE and, what you're looking to do with this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you started it off on the right note. At its core, it's an initiative to restore silver and gold to the monetary system. Now, that is quite the mandate. So how do we actually accomplish that? Well, we use modern technology like blockchain to create an ecosystem of tools that make gold and silver practical to be used as currency in our day-to-day lives, as vehicles for savings, and all the other means by which we use currency and capital today to create investments and opportunities for people worldwide. So 4.5 years or so I've been in this project now, and during that time we've seen the development of our digital gold, our digital silver. We've created a mobile wallet that integrates with traditional banking systems like debit and credit cards, and now more recently we're gearing up for what's going to be a very exciting launch of our new NFT platform coming into the fall. So there's really just touching the top of the iceberg here about how we can use gold and silver with blockchain technology to create new and exciting opportunities and a shield from inflation for people, which is something I think is super, super important right now.
Okay, so thank you for that, great summary, but let's get to the core of it, right? Like what's at the heart of it. And what is driving that? Like talk to me a little bit about what the investors in LODE are looking for. What's the alternative that appeals to them? Why would they want gold and silver returned? And some would say, well, it was never money, but that's a whole other debate. But why would they want this? Why would they want gold and silver restored as sound money here?
Absolutely. Well, I think the world itself is really proving our core mandate right now, in a sense. What we're witnessing is a lot of inflation and the devaluation of people's currency. There was a period not so long ago within modern history where most world currencies were backed by some form of precious metal to a certain extent. Of course, I'm talking about the gold standard here. And during those times, inflation was relatively kept in check, meaning that the dollar retained its value. I barely have to, open up my web browser right now to see a story about inflation impacting us here in North America, where not so long ago that was viewed as something that couldn't even happen here. We were almost chastising places like Venezuela and Argentina that were suffering hyperinflation, and yet everything from the housing market to the groceries you buy right now is skyrocketing in price, and that's hurting people. That's hurting people like you, like me, and people all throughout the world right now. And so people need an asset that they can trust, something that is inherently valuable, to act as a bedrock in times of crisis, so that your wealth isn't devaluating day over day, year over year. And that's really, when you get down to the core, what the investors are in LODE believe in.
So what do you say to the naysayers, Nick, that'll come out and say, look, you guys are dreaming, gold and silver are never going to be used as money. It's impossible. This is, never going to happen. What do you say to those folks?
I mean, it almost makes me laugh, because I feel like the naysayers really give me fuel, for one. Like, it's their spite that powers me in a way. But realistically, the entire field of innovation and technology is based on these radical ideas that seem at the time impossible. Name any great invention throughout history, and there has been a body of people who has said, well, that'll never happen, that'll never work. But realistically, this isn't a new concept. This is a very old concept that has been deployed well throughout most of history. And there's absolutely no reason, especially because we've seen and witnessed and have historical evidence that it's worked, that we can't use modern technology to make that system functional in today's modern economy. I think a lot of the hesitancy and a lot of the friction around a system like this is that historically it became somewhat impractical. But with the advent of blockchain technology, I don't think that is a reality anymore. So why not do something, for one, that is different, but two, that we know that works, right? I think it was Einstein that said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I would assume that a lot of the investors interested in this project have a distrust of the current banking system, or want a different monetary system. Is that a correct assumption to make on my part?
Yeah, to an extent. I think everybody has their own motivations. I think there definitely is a large core of people within the LODE project that don't trust central banks and central governments so much. I to an extent count myself among those people. I think that at the end of the day, when you peel back the layers, they're all people, and when you give people unfettered control, they tend to abuse it, right? And so I think, realistically, the project works with regulators, and we're not antagonistic to regulators worldwide, and we work very hard to be compliant in all jurisdictions that we're operational. But this is about creating something that is separate from what exists today and integrating with it only insofar as much as you need to, meaning that people can have as much autonomy and security over their capital, and the comfort that nobody has the capability to seize it and take it from you.
I'd love to get your vision of what an ideal, next stage monetary system looks like. Is it one that consists of no Fed, or what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I don't believe that central governments or central organizations are going to go anywhere. I think we live in this society, and governments are somewhat of a necessity because of just how many people we have that need to work together and cooperate and live in cities, and there's all this infrastructure. You get the idea. So I don't believe in a world where the Fed is going to necessarily disappear. What I do believe in is that in the future, almost everything will be tokenized or turned into an NFT, or the idea of what property is will be almost entirely tokenized and digitized. And so people will have a lot more flexibility in the way that they store their capital, meaning that I could have, a couple tons of gold, and I could have, tokenized real estate. I could have wheat, corn, any number of assets. And then as I need to, as an individual, I can liquidate into a central bank currency and use that central bank currency to do things like pay my taxes and so on and so forth. Because these central currencies are how governments largely maintain the operations within their own nations. So I feel that in the future, and when I say the future, I'm not talking very long here. I'm talking 5-10 years at tops. I think the average individual is going to hold their wealth not largely in even stocks, bonds, and ETFs, but in a whole basket of tokenized assets that represent real individual itemized things worldwide that they can then liquidate and use as they need to do banking and so on.
When you say this is not so far off into the future, do you think that we're already in the midst of a monetary reset? Has it already begun for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has. I think, realistically speaking, it started when Bitcoin really started to explode in 2016, 2017. I think that was really the start of this transition, where the idea that an alternative way was viable really began to gain traction in the market. And of course, anybody who's worked in technology for any extended period of time will tell you there's this chart of adoption that takes place for almost every product, right? You have your innovators, your early adopters, the early majority, the late, and then the late majority. Now, where are we at in that curve? It's tough to say. I would definitely say that tens of millions of people at this point hold some type of digital asset. Is it into the billions? I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I certainly know that, having traveled all around the world at this point, that if I say the word Bitcoin, right, if I say the word crypto, people at least have an inkling of what I'm talking about. It's not this wild foreign concept anymore.
Right.
And people are really excited about the implications of it. So I think, and if you look at institutions, almost all of them have blockchain departments or innovating blockchain with blockchain technology and finding ways to integrate it into their financial system.
I want to talk to you about the price action we're seeing now. I mean, how important, do you check the precious metal prices daily? How important is it to have a robust rally here in gold and silver? Tough times here for the metal.
Yeah, it is tough times for the metal. I think all things moves in ebbs and flows, and when I look at things, I look at things from a macro perspective, right? So for me, daily price fluctuations aren't the biggest concern. I think, given on a long enough timeline, you'll see that they outperform fiat currencies tenfold. So I'm not super stressed when I see price action in the market. The same way I'm not super concerned when the Bitcoin price collapses, because these things are quite cyclical. Bitcoin especially has a track record of losing, 80%, 90% of its value approximately, and then skyrocketing again. So in that same logic, when I see dips in the market for gold and silver, what it's really talking to me about, what it really says to me is that that investor sentiment is lying elsewhere right now, but it will return. It always does.
So are you one of those rare breeds of people, Nick, that believes in holding Bitcoin and gold and silver? You're not divided?
I don't view them as conflicting things. I think you hold each for different reasons, and I think it's somewhat of a silly, I don't even know what to call it, manufactured argument that takes place to give people reason to get excited about these two assets. I think anybody who's a smart investor never puts all their eggs in one basket, and so why not? I think the ocean is big enough for both of us. But I do think that Bitcoin really is just the tip of the iceberg for people, and people really need to stretch their legs and go beyond that and explore maybe hybrids like what LODE has produced, where it's simultaneously both blockchain and gold.
Right. But to that point, let's talk a little bit about, the crypto winter we're in. And, what do you make of, the collapse of Luna and Celsius? Were these type of cleansings necessary for the sector? Do you see more cleansing happening?
Really good question. I think anytime you have emerging technologies that you're going to go through phases and cycles like this, I think compared to where the space was back in 2016, 2017, there's a lot more maturity in the market than there previously was. And every time we go through one of these cleansing cycles, what we see is more regulation come in, more real use cases come forward, and more innovation in the space that allows it to really seize on its full potential. Now, what the other thing that these events that we're seeing with companies like Luna take place is really illustrating, for me at least, and I can't speak on everybody, and I know there's a lot of technology maximalists out there that might want to put my head on a stick for that one, what I'm about to say, but I think what it illustrates to me is that technology alone cannot solve our problems, right? Technology can be manipulated, code can be manipulated, and we're seeing that out there in the market. People find loopholes and cause crises to happen. So what you need is how do I put this? You need just as good business logic inside of your operation as you do a technology stack. I think it is a fallacy to believe that any crypto, any project is completely insulated just by having super powerful technology, because it can be manipulated, and vice versa. Lots of critics say, well, people are flawed too, and they're absolutely right to think that. So it's about having the right balance of both these things working in tandem to create an idealistic system. Now, could that ever be achieved? I mean, I'm biased. I think I'm working towards that goal myself. But when I see incidents with Luna, that's what that makes me realize, is that technology is not the A all and B all, but it plays an important factor in creating a new and better system.
Just a final point, Nick. I mean, I know there are other gold and silver backed crypto projects out there. What do you think makes yours different?
Yeah, I think, you believe it or not, we're one of the only non-derivative collateralized blockchain projects out there, right? So our assets are always 100% fully backed. There's never comes a point of time where these assets are not backed. And I'm not going to name any names here, but if you look and actually read that fine print in our terms of service for other gold and silver blockchains, they are very much derivatives, meaning that they don't always have to have 100% reserves accessible for each one of their units of currency, which is not what we're about, right? We're about that authenticity, about the genuine right to ownership of that physical gold, physical silver. And I think that is really one of the biggest differentiators for LODE. Not judging people for wanting derivatives if that's what they're about. The other thing that I think that really makes LODE radically different from other competitors out there is how we approach what we can do with gold and silver. I mentioned way back at the beginning of this interview that we're about to launch a Bullion NFT program. I think it's the first of its kind in its world, and I think it's going to change the way that the paper market trades and the way institutional bodies look at buying their silver and their gold. So that's something that's really progressive that you don't see with other companies. We're looking at how can we generate yield on your gold, so have people earn automatic payouts in actual gold and silver, and we're also doing a lot to engage in the Web3 and decentralized finance space. So we're not just saying let's recreate bullion on the blockchain. We're really trying to stretch creatively about how can we take this asset with inherent value and make it as exciting and as interesting as possible. And I really think that's one of LODE's core selling features.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. If folks want more info on the project, LODE.one, I believe, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You can find us at LODE.one. That's LODE.one.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Good luck with everything, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Daniela. Take care.
And thank you so much for watching this edition of the Daniela Cambone Show here on Stansberry Research. Don't forget to sign up at danielacambone.com to stay on top of all these awesome interviews. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.
Opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the contributor and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Stansberry Research, its parent company, or affiliates.